The morning light on Kepler 442b was not the gentle golden glow it had been for thousands of years. Instead, angry red flames danced across the sky as their sun writhed in its death throes. Ambassador Veltar stood at the edge of the crystal platform, his blue skin shimmering with worry as he watched the solar flares grow stronger each day. "Sir, the council is ready for you," his aide whispered behind him. The young Zephyrian's voice shook with fear. Everyone knew what this meeting meant. It was their last chance. Veltar walked into the great hall where the planetary leaders had gathered. The room was filled with beings who had lived for centuries, yet none had ever faced anything like this. Their sun was dying 50 years ahead of schedule. The scientists still could not explain why. "My people," Veltar began, his voice carrying across the silent chamber. "Today, we send our plea to the galaxy. We have served the greater good for over 2,000 years. We have shared our knowledge, opened our trade routes, and never raised weapons against another world. Now we ask for help in return." Elder Zareth, the oldest among them, stepped forward. Her ancient eyes held both wisdom and sadness. "The evacuation ships can only carry half our population. We need vessels from other worlds. We need temporary shelter until we can find a new home. Without help, 1 million of our people will die when the sun collapses." The transmission array hummed to life. This was not just a message to nearby worlds. This was a broadcast to every corner of known space, sent through the quantum network that connected all civilized planets. The signal would reach hundreds of worlds within hours. Veltar placed his hands on the communication device. The blue crystal began to glow as it prepared to carry his words across the void. He closed his eyes and thought of his daughter, of all the children who would never see another sunrise if this ply failed. "People of the galaxy," he began, his voice now carried by quantum waves to distant stars. "I am Ambassador Veltar of the Zephyrian Republic. Our world is dying. Our sun enters its final collapse in less than 90 days. We have ships to save half our population, but we cannot save them all." He paused, fighting back tears that glowed like liquid starlight on his cheeks. "We do not ask for charity. We offer our knowledge in return. Our architectural designs, our quantum communication technology, our historical records spanning millennia. We ask only for ships to carry our people to safety and temporary shelter until we can rebuild." The message continued for several minutes, including technical specifications and coordinates. It contained everything an advanced civilization would need to organize a rescue mission. When the transmission ended, the hall fell silent. "Now we wait," Elder Zareth said softly. The first response came from the Altarian Federation within 6 hours. Ambassador Veltar read it aloud to the assembled council, his voice growing smaller with each word. "The Altarian Federation regrets that current military commitments prevent us from allocating resources for evacuation efforts. We suggest contacting the Centaurian Empire for assistance." The second response arrived the next morning from the Centaurian Empire. "The Empire acknowledges the Zephyrian request. However, recent territorial disputes with the Vegan Alliance require all available ships to remain in our home systems. We recommend approaching the Silicon Brotherhood." By the end of the week, 47 different civilizations had responded. Every single one had an excuse. The hegemony of Sark called it an unfortunate natural disaster beyond our current operational scope. The Andromedan Council cited budgetary constraints in the current fiscal cycle. The Trade Federation of Rigel explained that commercial shipping contracts prevent the temporary reallocation of vessels. Some responses were shorter. The Crystal Confederation sent only 4 words: "Unable to assist. Sorry." Ambassador Veltar sat in his office, staring at the pile of rejection messages. Outside his window, The angry red sun sent another wave of radiation toward their world. The temperature had risen 3 degrees in the past week. The underground shelters were nearly complete, but they could only protect people for a few months. "Sir," his aide entered quietly. "There's been another." Response. Veltar looked up with little hope. "Let me guess? Another polite refusal?" "Actually, sir, this one is different. It's not from any known civilization. The signal is very weak, coming from a system at the edge of our star maps. The translation is rough, but they seem to be asking for more information." For the first time in weeks, Veltar felt a spark of hope. "Show me." 50 light years away, Lieutenant Commander Jake Morrison sat in a small concrete building in the mountains of Colorado. The facility looked ordinary from the outside, just another government installation. Inside, banks of computers monitored radio signals from deep space, searching for signs of intelligent life among the stars. Jake had been doing this job for 3 years. Most days were quiet, filled with cosmic background radiation and the occasional pulsar. He had joined the program after leaving the Navy, drawn by the possibility of making history. So far, history had been disappointingly silent. That changed when he heard Veltar's voice. The computer's translation program worked slowly, converting the alien speech into English. Jake listened to the entire message 3 times, his coffee growing cold in his hands. This was not a drill or a test transmission. This was real. An entire civilization was about to die, and they were begging for help. Jake looked around the empty monitoring station. It was late at night, and he was alone. The weight of what he had just heard settled on his shoulders like a heavy blanket. Somewhere in the darkness between stars, 2 million people were counting down their final days. He reached for his phone to call Director Linda Walsh. His hands were shaking as he dialed her number. After 30 years of searching for extraterrestrial intelligence, they had finally found it. The only problem was that it came with a timer attached. "Director Walsh?" he said when she answered. "I need you to get down here right now. We just received a message from space, and it's not good news." The phone fell silent for a moment. Then Walsh's voice came back, sharp and focused. "I'll be there in 20 minutes. Don't touch anything, and don't call anyone else until I arrive." Jake hung up and stared at the computer screen. The alien transmission was still playing on repeat, the desperate voice of Ambassador Veltar echoing through the small room. Outside, the Earth continued its peaceful rotation, unaware that humanity had just become the only species in the galaxy willing to listen to a cry for help. The universe was about to learn what made humans different from everyone else. Director Linda Walsh arrived at the monitoring station 23 minutes after Jake's call. Her gray hair was messy from being woken up, but her eyes were sharp and focused. She had spent 30 years hoping for this moment, but not like this. "Play it again," she said, settling into the chair next to Jake. They listened to Ambassador Veltar's plea in complete silence. When it finished, Linda stared at the computer screen for a long time. The numbers were clear. 2 million people. 90 days. No help coming from anywhere in the galaxy. "Are we sure this is real?" she asked quietly. Jake nodded. "I've run every test we have. The signal originates from Kepler 442b, exactly where they said. The quantum signature matches no known Earth technology. This is the real thing, Director." Linda picked up her secure phone. "I'm calling the Pentagon. This goes straight to the top." Within 6 hours, Jake and Linda found themselves in a conference room deep inside NORD. The mountain facility buzzed with activity as military officials and scientists gathered for an emergency briefing. At the head of the table sat Admiral Pete Carter, a man whose gray beard and steady eyes had seen 3 wars. "Let me make sure I understand this correctly," the Admiral said, his voice gravelly from too many years and too much coffee. Aliens are real. They're dying, and Earth is the only planet that answered their distress call. That's correct, sir, Linda replied. Every major civilization in their galaxy has refused to help. We intercepted rejection messages from 47 different worlds. Admiral Carter rubbed his forehead. And you want us to do what exactly? We can barely get a crew to Mars without something going wrong. Jake stood up, his voice firm despite his nervousness. Sir, with all respect, we can't just ignore this. These people are going to die, 2 million of them. And we're the only ones who care enough to even try. Son, caring doesn't magically give us faster-than-light travel, the Admiral shot back. Kepler 442b is 50 light-years away. Even if we had ships that could make the journey, it would take decades. That's when Dr. Amy Rodriguez spoke up from the corner of the room. She was young, maybe 35, with dark hair pulled back in a practical ponytail. Jake had never seen her before, but her badge identified her as a xenobiologist from NASA. Actually, that might not be true, she said, opening a thick folder of papers. I've been studying the technical specifications included in their transmission. The Zephyrians aren't just asking for help. They're offering something in return. She moved to the front of the room and activated the large screen. Complex diagrams filled the display, showing designs that looked nothing like human technology. They've included complete blueprints for their quantum communication array, Amy continued. But more importantly, they've included theoretical frameworks for faster-than-light travel. Their physics are decades ahead of ours. The room fell silent as everyone stared at the alien designs. Jake could see the wheels turning in the Admiral's mind. You're saying they've given us the technology to actually reach them? Admiral Carter asked. I'm saying they've given us a head start, Amy replied. We still need to build the ships, test the systems, and figure out how to make their technology work with ours. But yes, sir, this could work. Linda leaned forward. How long would it take? Amy hesitated. If we had unlimited resources and worked around the clock? Maybe 4 months to build a prototype ship. Another month for testing. But that's cutting every corner possible. That gives us barely enough time, Jake said. Their sun collapses in 90 days. Admiral Carter stood up and walked to the window overlooking the command center. Below them, dozens of people monitored threats from around the world. Now they faced something no one had ever prepared for. This decision is above my pay grade, he said finally. I need to brief the president. 2 days later, Jake found himself in the most secure room in America. The Oval Office felt smaller than he expected, but the gravity of the moment made every breath feel heavy. President Maria Santos sat behind her desk, reading through files marked with the highest classification. Levels. Dr. Rodriguez, the president said without looking up, explain to me how we're supposed to save aliens when we can't even agree on a budget for fixing our own roads. Amy stood straight, her voice steady. Madam President, this isn't just about saving the Zephyrians. This is about who we are as a species. Every advanced civilization in the galaxy just proved they care more about politics than people. We have a chance to show that humanity is different. The president finally looked up. And if we fail? If we spend billions of dollars and countless lives on a mission that doesn't work? Then at least we tried, Jake said, surprising himself with his boldness. At least we proved that someone in this galaxy still believes that life matters more than convenience. President Santos was quiet for a long time. She walked to the window and looked out at the rose garden, where spring flowers were just beginning to bloom. I became president to make America stronger, she said finally. But maybe strength isn't just about military power or economic dominance. Maybe strength is about doing what's right, even when it's impossible. She turned back to face them. Project Guardian is approved. Dr. Rodriguez, you'll head the scientific team. Admiral Carter will handle logistics and personnel. Director Walsh will maintain communication with the Zephyrians. Jake felt his heart racing. What about me, Madam President? Lieutenant Commander Morrison, you're the one who heard their cry. For help, you're going with the rescue mission. The next month passed in a blur of activity. Factories across America retooled their production lines. Scientists worked 18-hour days adapting alien technology to human systems. The brightest minds from NASA, MIT, and private industry all came together for a single purpose. Captain Ben Thompson was chosen to lead the mission. He was a decorated astronaut with 15 years of experience, calm under pressure, and respected by everyone who worked with him. His crew would include pilot Susan Martinez, medical officer Dr. Nick Johnson, and engineer Lisa Parker. The ship they would fly didn't have a name yet. It sat in a secret facility in Nevada, looking like nothing humanity had ever built before. The hull was sleek and silver, designed using Zephyrian architectural principles. Inside, human and alien technology worked together in ways that shouldn't have been possible. "She's beautiful," Captain Thompson said, running his hand along the ship's smooth surface. Amy stood beside him, exhaustion written on her face from weeks of constant work. "She's also completely untested. We're basically flying a prototype into deep space with the hopes that alien science actually works." Thompson smiled. "Sounds like every space mission I've ever been on. The only difference is this time we're not just exploring. We're saving lives." As they spoke, another message arrived from Kepler 442b. Ambassador Veltar's voice was weaker now, filled with growing desperation. The temperature on their world had risen another 5 degrees. The underground shelters were at capacity. Time was running out. But for the first time since their original plea, the Zephyrian transmission included something new. Hope. "People of Earth," Veltar's translated voice said through the speakers, "we have received your response. We cannot believe that someone finally answered. We do not know if your mission will succeed, but knowing that someone is trying gives our people strength to endure. Thank you for caring when no one else would." Jake listened to the message from the launch facility, watching through reinforced windows as final preparations continued on humanity's first interstellar rescue mission. In 60 days, they would either make history or die trying. Either way, the galaxy was about to learn what made humans different from everyone else. The U.S. Hope left Earth's atmosphere on a cold Tuesday morning in March. Captain Ben Thompson sat in the pilot's chair, watching his home planet shrink away below them. He had flown many missions before, but none that carried the weight of 2,000,000 lives. "All systems running green," reported Susan Martinez from the co-pilot seat. She was 32 years old and had more flight hours than anyone else in the program. Her steady hands would guide them through space that no human had. Ever-traveled dot behind them, Dr. Nick Johnson checked his medical equipment one more time. The ship's medical bay was filled with supplies they hoped would help the Zephyrians. Nobody knew if human medicine would work on alien bodies, but they had to try. "The quantum drive is stable," announced Lisa Parker from the engineering station. At 28, she was the youngest crew member, but also the smartest. She understood the alien technology better than anyone else on Earth. If something broke during the journey, she would have to fix it. Jake Morrison sat at the communications station, listening to the steady hum of the quantum transmitter. Every few hours, they received updates from Kepler 442b. The news was getting worse. The Zephyrian sun was throwing out more radiation each day. Surface temperatures had risen 15 degrees in the past month. Message coming in from home base. Jake announced. Director Walsh's voice filled the bridge. "Hope, this is Control. How are you holding up out there?" Captain Thompson pressed the reply button. "We're doing fine, Control. The ship is running better than expected. How much longer until we reach the system?" "Amy says another 6 weeks at current speed. The Zephyrians report they've moved another 100,000 people into the deep shelters. They're running low on food and clean water." The crew exchanged worried looks. They all knew the math. Even if everything went perfectly, they could only carry a few hundred Zephyrians at a time. Moving 2 million people would take dozens of trips. They didn't have that kind of time. "We'll figure something out," Thompson said, though he wasn't sure how. During the long journey, the crew studied everything they could about Zephyrian culture. The aliens had sent detailed files about their society, their history, and their way of life. Jake spent hours each day learning their language. It was musical and complex, nothing like human speech. "Listen to this," he said one evening, playing a recording for the others. "This is a Zephyrian children's song about the stars. They believe each star holds the dreams of their ancestors." Dr. Johnson looked up from his medical texts. "Their whole culture is built around peace and learning. They've never fought a war, never even had an army. How did they survive in a galaxy full of hostile species?" "By being useful," Lisa replied. "Reading from her datapad. They're master builders. Half the space stations in their galaxy used Zephyrian designs. They made themselves too valuable to attack." Susan shook her head sadly, "but not valuable enough to save." As they traveled deeper into space, they began picking up other signals. Radio chatter from alien ships, news broadcasts from distant worlds, even what sounded like alien music. The galaxy was full of life, but none of it was coming to help the Zephyrians. "I intercepted a transmission from the Altarian fleet," Jake reported during their daily briefing. "They're discussing mining rights to the Kepler system after the Zephyrians are gone." Captain Thompson's jaw tightened. "They're already planning to pick over the bones." "It gets worse," Jake continued. "The hegemony of Sark is moving 3 battle cruisers toward the system. They claim it's for security purposes, but I think they want to make sure nobody interferes with their plans." The crew fell silent. They had known this mission would be dangerous, but the idea of facing alien warships had never come up in there. "Training. We stick to the mission," Thompson said firmly. "We save who we can save." 6 weeks after leaving Earth, the U's Hope dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Kepler system. What they saw took their breath away. The Zephyrian sun was a swirling mass of red and orange fury, throwing off solar flares that stretched millions of miles into space. The planet looked like a tiny blue marble being slowly cooked by its own star. "My God," whispered Susan. "How are they still alive down there?" Jake was already working the communications array. "Kepler 442b, this is the Earthship Hope. Please respond." The reply came immediately in perfect English. "Earthship Hope, this is Elder Zareth. We have been waiting for you. Welcome to our dying world." The next few hours were a whirlwind of activity. Captain Thompson took a shuttle down to the planet's surface, while the others remained aboard the Hope. The heat was incredible, even through his environmental suit. The sky was a constant angry red, and the air shimmered with radiation. The Zephyrian capital city was mostly empty now. The beautiful crystal buildings that had once housed millions were dark and abandoned. Only a few aliens remained on the surface, working desperately to keep the underground shelters running. Elder Zareth met Thompson at the landing site. She was tall and graceful, with blue skin that seemed to glow with inner light. Despite the terrible situation, she smiled when she saw him. "Captain Thompson," she said in heavily accented English, "I cannot believe you are really here. When we sent our message to the galaxy, we hoped someone would care. We never dreamed that someone would actually come." Thompson removed his helmet, breathing the thin but still manageable air. "Ma'am, We're here to get your people to safety. All of them. Zarath's expression grew sad. Captain, you are brave and kind, but your ship cannot carry 2 million souls. We have perhaps 30 days before the surface becomes uninhabitable, and maybe 60 days before the sun's final collapse. Then we better get started, Thompson replied. Show me your evacuation plans. The underground city was a marvel of engineering. Miles of tunnels connected vast chambers where Zephyrians lived in cramped but organized communities. The aliens had done everything possible to prepare for their world's end, but they had always planned on outside help that never came. We have identified the most vulnerable, Zareth explained as they walked through the tunnels. The young, the old, those with medical conditions. They will go first. Thompson stopped walking. Ma'am, with respect, that's not how we do things where I come from. We don't choose who lives and who dies based on age or health. We find a way to save everyone. Zareth looked at him with surprise. But Captain, it is not possible. The mathematics are clear. Mathematics can be wrong, Thompson said. People can be resourceful. Your message included technical specifications for your quantum transmitters, right? What if we use those to call for help? We tried that for months. No one came except you. Thompson smiled. We're not calling the same people. We're calling Earth. Back aboard the Hope, Jake was working frantically at his communications station. The plan was simple but dangerous. They would use the Zephyrian quantum network to send a message back to Earth, asking for every ship that could be spared. Military vessels, cargo haulers, even experimental craft still in testing. The signal strength is good, he reported. Message is transmitting now. Lisa looked up from her engineering console. Ben, even if Earth sends every ship we have, it'll take them weeks to get here. We don't have weeks. Then we buy time, Thompson replied. We start evacuating people now, and we pray that help arrives before it's too late. Dr. Johnson had spent the day examining Zephyrian physiology. The good news is they can survive in our ship's atmosphere with minor adjustments. The bad news is they're already showing signs of radiation poisoning from their dying sun. As the first group of Zephyrian refugees boarded the Hope, Elder Zareth stood with Captain Thompson, watching the loading process. The aliens moved with quiet dignity, carrying only small bags of personal belongings. Children clung to their parents, not fully understanding why they had to leave their world behind. Captain, Zareth said softly, in all our centuries of galactic diplomacy, we learned to expect disappointment. Promises broken, help delayed, excuses offered instead of action. You are the first species to do exactly what you said you would do. Thompson watched a young Zephyrian family settle into their temporary quarters. Ma'am, where we come from. Your word is your bond. When someone needs help, you help them. It's that simple. Perhaps, Zareth replied. That is why the galaxy needs humanity. The second week of rescue operations was when everything started going wrong. Captain Thompson stood on the bridge of the Hope, watching red warning lights flash across every console. They had managed to evacuate 800 Zephyrians so far, but the dying sun was getting more violent each day. Solar flare incoming, Susan Martinez announced from the pilot's seat. It's a big one. We need to get to the far side of the planet. The Hope shuddered as radiation washed over its shields. Through the viewports, the crew could see the Zephyrian sun throwing off massive streams of superheated gas. What had once been a stable star was now a cosmic time bomb counting down to zero. How much time do we have left? Thompson asked. Lisa Parker looked up from her engineering station, her face grim. At the current rate of solar decay, maybe 40 days before the surface is uninhabitable. 60 days before total collapse. Jake Morrison was hunched over his communications array, desperately trying to reach Earth. Still no word from home. The quantum interference from the sun is getting worse. I can barely maintain contact with the underground shelters. Dr. Nick Johnson emerged from the medical bay, exhaustion written across his face. He had been working nonstop to treat Zephyrians suffering from radiation poisoning. We're running low on medical supplies, and the radiation levels are affecting the refugees we already have on board. Thompson felt the weight of impossible mathematics crushing down on him. 800 people saved. Nearly 2 million still waiting below. At their current pace, they could maybe save 10,000 before the planet became uninhabitable. The numbers were brutal and unforgiving. There has to be another way, he muttered. Elder Zareth's voice came through the comm system from the planet's surface. Captain Thompson, we are reading massive energy signatures approaching our system. Multiple ships moving very fast. Thompson's heart jumped. Earth ships? Negative, Captain. These are not human vessels. I believe they are hegemony of Sark warships. The bridge fell silent. Everyone knew what that meant. The Sark hegemony was one of the most aggressive military powers in the galaxy. They had been eyeing Zephyrian territory for decades, waiting for an opportunity to claim it. How long until they arrive? Thompson asked. Approximately 6 hours at current speed. Thompson made a decision that went against every regulation in the manual. All right, people, we're changing the plan. Lisa, I need you to work with the Zephyrian engineers. Can we modify their quantum transmitters to boost our signal strength? Probably. But why? Because we're going to call every ship in this part of the galaxy. Not just Earth ships. Every vessel that has a working engine and can carry people. Jake stared at his captain. Sir, most of the galaxy already refused to help. Why would they change their minds now? Because now they'll see what we're willing to do for strangers. Sometimes you have to show people what courage looks like before they remember they have some of their own. Down on the planet's surface, human and Zephyrian engineers worked side by side in the underground tunnels. The heat was almost unbearable, even with cooling systems running at maximum. Lisa Parker found herself working alongside a young Zephyrian scientist named Kyle Mann. Your people are remarkable, Kyle Mann said as they connected quantum relay nodes. In our experience, most species help others only when there is clear benefit. You gain nothing from saving us. Lisa wiped sweat from her forehead. We gained the knowledge that we did the right thing. Where I come from, that's worth more than money or territory. Where you come from, people must sleep very peacefully at night. Sometimes, Lisa admitted, but sometimes we lie awake, worrying about people we've never met who might need help. The modified transmitter came online just as the Sark warships dropped out of hyperspace. Thompson watched the tactical display as 3 massive battle cruisers took position around the dying planet. Each ship was 10 times larger than the Hope. Attention Earth vessel, came a harsh voice over the communications channel. This is Admiral Rex Blackwood of the Sark hegemony. You are trespassing in claimed territory. Withdraw immediately. Thompson took a deep breath before responding. Admiral Blackwood, this is Captain Ben Thompson of the Earthship Hope. We are conducting humanitarian rescue operations. These people are dying. The fate of the Zephyrians is not our concern, nor is it yours. You have 1 hour to collect your personnel and leave this system. I'm afraid I can't do that, Admiral. We have a job to finish. There was a long pause. Ben Blackwood's voice returned, colder than before. Captain, your ship is no match for a single hegemony destroyer, let alone 3 battle cruisers. Do not force us to demonstrate the difference in our capabilities. Jake looked up from his station. Ben, the quantum transmitter is ready. Should I send the message? Thompson stared at the tactical display showing the 3 enemy warships. This was the moment that would define not just the mission, but humanity's place in the galaxy. They could retreat, save the few hundred Zephyrians already on board, and return to Earth with their heads held high. Or they could take a stand that might get them all killed. Send it, he said quietly. The message that went out across the galaxy was simple and direct. It included coordinates, technical specifications, and a plea for help. But it also included something else. Real-time video feeds from the Hope's cameras, showing human crew members working alongside Zephyrian refugees, sharing food, teaching each other languages, and treating alien children with the same care they would show their own. The first response came from an unexpected source. The Novarian Republic, a small trading confederation, sent a message directly to the Hope. Captain Thompson, we have 5 cargo vessels in nearby systems. They are not military ships, but they can carry people. We are coming. Then another message arrived from the Crystal Confederation. Earthship Hope, we are sending medical supplies and volunteer crews. Arrival in 18 hours. Jake could barely believe what he was seeing. His communications board lit up with incoming messages from worlds across the galaxy. Species that had remained neutral were suddenly offering ships, supplies, and personnel. What's happening? Thompson asked. I think we're inspiring people, Jake replied, his voice filled with wonder. They're seeing what we're doing, and they want to be part of it. Admiral Blackwood's voice cut through the celebration. Captain Thompson, I don't know what game you're playing, but it ends now. Power down your engines and prepare to be boarded. Actually, Admiral, came a new voice over the comm channel. I think it's your game that's ending. The tactical display suddenly showed new contacts dropping out of hyperspace. Ships from a dozen different worlds, all converging on the Kepler system. They weren't military vessels, but there were a lot of them. This is Captain Vextar of the Novarian cargo ship Bright Star, the voice continued. Admiral Blackwood, you are outnumbered. We suggest you reconsider your position. Thompson couldn't help but smile. Admiral, it looks like you have a choice to make. You can try to fight 24 ships filled with volunteers, or you can let us finish saving these people. The silence stretched for several long minutes. Finally, Admiral Blackwood's voice returned, tight with controlled anger. This is not over, Captain Thompson. The hegemony will remember this. I hope you do, Thompson replied. I hope you remember that when people needed help, humans and their friends answered the call. The next 24 hours were chaos in the best possible way. Ships from across the galaxy worked together to evacuate the remaining Zephyrians. Human crews taught alien pilots how to safely approach the dying planet. Zephyrian engineers helped. Other species modified their ships to carry more refugees. Dr. Johnson found himself treating patients from 6 different worlds, all volunteers who had come to help. This is incredible, he told Thompson during a brief break. I've got a Crystal Confederation medic teaching me about radiation treatment, while a Novarian engineer is helping Lisa install better life support systems. It's what happens when people stop making excuses and start making a difference. Thompson replied. As the evacuation entered its final phase, Elder Zareth joined Thompson on the Hope's bridge. Together, they watched the last transport ships lift off from the dying world below. Captain, she said softly, you have saved my people. But more than that, you have saved something I thought was lost forever. What's that? Hope, the belief that when someone cries for help, someone else will answer. Thompson nodded, watching. The Zephyrian sun throw off another massive solar flare. Elder Zareth, I think that's just the beginning. The galaxy is about to learn that there are still people who believe in doing the right thing. Behind them, Jake was already receiving messages from other worlds, other species asking for help with their own problems. The universe was suddenly full of voices that had been silent for too long, all asking the same question. If humans could answer one impossible call for help, maybe they could answer another. The rescue mission was almost complete, but Captain Thompson was beginning to realize that their real work was just getting started. The evacuation was almost complete when everything went wrong again. Commander Jake Morrison now served aboard the UEC Courage, the second Earthship that had arrived 3 weeks earlier. He stood on the bridge, watching the tactical display as dozens of rescue ships worked frantically around the dying planet. Final transport lifting off from the northern shelter, reported Lieutenant Amy Clark from the communications station. That's all of them from that sector. Captain Danny Rodriguez, who commanded the Courage, checked his datapad. How many people are still down there? About 3,000 in the deep core shelters, Jake replied. But the radiation levels are getting deadly. Even the underground areas won't be safe much longer. Through the viewport, they could see the Zephyrian sun growing more violent by the hour. Solar flares stretched millions of miles into space, and the star's surface churned like an angry ocean of fire. The planet below was already uninhabitable on the surface. The underground shelters were the only things keeping the last refugees alive. "Sir, we're getting a priority transmission from the planet," Amy announced. "It's Elder Zareth." The elderly Zephyrian leader appeared on the main screen. Even through the static caused by solar interference, they could see that she looked exhausted. Her blue skin had a gray tinge that spoke of radiation sickness. "Captain Rodriguez, Commander Morrison," she said, her voice weak but determined. "We have discovered a problem. The deep shelters are failing faster than expected. The quantum power cores that keep them running are being damaged by solar radiation." Jake felt his heart sink. How long do the people down there have? Perhaps 18 hours? Maybe less. Captain Rodriguez leaned forward. "What about evacuation? Can we get transport ships down to those levels?" "The tunnels are too narrow and unstable. A heavy radiation would destroy any ship that tried to land near the core shelters." The bridge fell silent. After weeks of successful rescues, they were facing their worst nightmare. 3,000 people trapped underground with no way to reach them and no way to save them. "There has to be something we can do," Jake said desperately. That's when Admiral Rex Blackwood's voice cut through their communications. "Attention all vessels in the Kepler system. By order of the Sark Hegemony, this rescue operation is now terminated. All ships will withdraw immediately." Jake looked at the tactical display. The 3 Hegemony warships had moved closer to the planet, positioning themselves between the rescue fleet and the dying world. "Admiral," Captain Rodriguez responded, "we still have 3,000 people trapped underground. We need more time." "Your time is up, Captain. The Hegemony has claimed salvage rights to this system. Any ship that remains will be considered hostile and dealt with accordingly." Jake watched in horror as the Hegemony ships began powering up. Their weapons. Energy readings spiked across the tactical display. Around them, the volunteer rescue ships from other worlds began to retreat. They had come to save lives, not to fight a war. "They can't do this," Jake whispered. "Not when we're so close." "Actually, they can," Captain Rodriguez replied grimly. "In galactic law, a dead system can be claimed by any military power. And technically, Kepler 442b is already dead." That's when a new voice joined the communications channel. "Admiral Blackwood, this is Captain Ben Thompson aboard the UES Hope. I'm afraid we have a problem with your timeline." Thompson's ship appeared on the tactical display, moving directly toward the largest Hegemony warship. The Hope was tiny compared to the massive battle cruiser, but it showed no signs of backing down. "Captain Thompson," Blackwood responded, "you are outgunned and outnumbered. Stand down immediately." "I don't think so, Admiral. You see, we still have people to save. And where I come from, you don't abandon people just because someone with bigger guns tells you to." Jake watched in amazement as other ships began moving to support the Hope. The Novarian cargo ships formed up behind Thompson. The Crystal Confederation medical vessels took defensive positions. Even some of the smaller alien rescue ships stopped retreating and turned back toward the planet. "This is insane," Admiral Blackwood transmitted. "You're all going to get yourselves killed for 3,000 aliens you've never met." "Admiral," Thompson replied calmly, "that's exactly the kind of thinking that got the galaxy into this mess. In the first place, the standoff stretched for several tense minutes. Weapons were powered and shields were raised on both sides. Jake could feel the tension crackling through space as dozens of ships faced off around the dying planet Dot. Then something unexpected happened. A new group of contacts appeared on the tactical display, dropping out of hyperspace at the edge of the system. Large ships, heavily armed, but not flying hegemony colors. "This is Admiral Sarah Kim of the Earth Defense Fleet," came a voice that made Jake's heart leap with relief. "Admiral Blackwood, you are interfering with a humanitarian mission authorized by the Terran government. Withdraw your forces immediately." Jake stared at the tactical display as 6 Earth warships took position around the rescue fleet. They were new ships, built using the same hybrid human Zephyrian technology as the rescue vessels. Each one was smaller than a hegemony battlecruiser, but there were 6 of them. "Admiral Kim," Blackwood responded, his voice tight with anger, "Earth has no authority in this sector. You are the ones who should withdraw." "Actually, Admiral, we do have authority. KEPLER 442b has officially requested to join the Terran Alliance, and we have accepted. This system is now under Earth protection." Jake looked at Captain Rodriguez in confusion. "Terran Alliance? What's that?" "I have no idea," Rodriguez admitted, "but I like the sound of it." The next few hours were a desperate race against time. While the Earth and hegemony fleets faced off in an uneasy standoff, rescue teams worked frantically to reach the trapped Zephyrians. The solution came from an unexpected source. Lisa Parker, working with Zephyrian engineers in the deep tunnels, discovered that they could use the quantum power cores from the Phelan shelters to create a temporary transport beam. It was dangerous and had never been tested, but it was their only option. The energy discharge could kill everyone in the tunnels, warned Dr. Kyleman, the Zephyrian scientist. Or it could save them. We won't know until we try. Jake volunteered to lead the rescue team into the deepest tunnel. The radiation levels were lethal, even with full protective gear. They had maybe an hour before their shields failed. "Why are you doing this?" asked Dr. Velminer, one of the trapped Zephyrians, as Jake's team worked to set up the transport equipment. "You could die down here with us." Jake paused in his work, thinking about the question. "Because that's what humans do. When someone needs help, we help them. It doesn't matter if they're human or alien, friend or stranger. If you're in trouble, we're coming for you, even if it costs your life, especially then." The transport beam activated just as Jake's radiation shields failed. Energy flooded through the tunnels as 3,000 Zephyrians disappeared in streams of golden light, materializing safely aboard the waiting rescue ships. Jake felt the radiation burning through his suit as he triggered the final sequence. He woke up 3 days later in the medical bay of the Hope. Dr. Johnson was standing over him with a smile. "You're going to be fine," the doctor said. "Radiation poisoning, but nothing we can't treat. And just so you know, all 3,000 Zephyrians made it out safely." Jake tried to sit up. "What about the hegemony ships?" "Gone. Turns out, Admiral." Blackwood didn't want to explain to his superiors why he started a war over a dead planet, especially when half the galaxy was watching and cheering for the rescue teams. Through the medical bay window, Jake could see the final transport ships leaving the Kepler system. Behind them, the Zephyrian sun was entering its final collapse, throwing off massive explosions that lit up space for millions of miles. "Jake," Dr. Johnson said quietly, "you should know that your rescue mission is being broadcast across the galaxy. Every news network, every government, every species that can receive quantum transmissions They're all watching humans risk their lives to save strangers. Jake nodded weakly. Good. Maybe it'll give other people ideas. Oh, it already has. We're getting distress calls from dozens of worlds. Planets facing natural disasters, colonies under attack, species asking for help with problems their own governments won't solve. And, Dr. Johnson smiled, and Earth is building more ships. Lots more ships. It seems like humanity just found its place in the galaxy. Outside the window, the last rescue ship jumped to hyperspace, carrying Zephyrian refugees to safety. Behind them, a star died in magnificent fury, but 2 million people lived because someone had finally answered their cry for help. The galaxy was about to learn that when humans made friends, they made them for life. 6 months after the rescue of Kepler 442b, the Zephyrian colony on New Haven was thriving. The planet was smaller than their old world, but it had clean air, fresh water, and most importantly, a stable sun that would burn for billions of years. Captain Lisa Parker walked through the crystal gardens that the Zephyrians had built near their new capital city. The aliens had a gift for architecture that made even simple buildings look like works of art. Spires of living crystal grew from the ground, shaped by Zephyrian technology into homes and community centers. Captain Parker called Elder Zareth as she approached through the garden paths. The elderly Zephyrian leader looked healthier than she had in months. The gray tinge was gone from her blue skin, replaced by the natural glow that all healthy Zephyrians possessed. "Please, just call me Lisa," Parker replied with a smile. "How are the new settlements coming along?" "Better than we dared hope. The young ones are especially happy. They say this world feels more like home than the underground shelters ever did." Lisa nodded, watching a group of young Zephyrians playing in a nearby field. Their laughter sounded like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. It was hard to believe that 6 months ago, these same children had been trapped underground, waiting to die. "Elder Zareth, there's something I wanted to discuss with you. We've been receiving messages from other worlds, species that need help with various problems. The Terran Alliance wants to know if the Zephyrians would be interested in joining. More rescue missions." Zareth's eyes grew bright with interest. "Our people have been discussing this very thing. We remember what it felt like when no one would help us. We do not wish that feeling on anyone else." "That's what I hoped you'd say." As they spoke, a transport ship landed at the nearby spaceport. Lisa recognized it as one of the new Terran Alliance vessels, sleek ships that combined human engineering with Zephyrian design principles. The passenger who emerged made Lisa's heart skip a beat. "Jake," she called out, running toward the landing pad. Commander Jake Morrison looked tired but happy as he stepped off the transport. His uniform bore the insignia of the Terran Alliance, an organization that had grown from a desperate rescue mission into something much larger. "Lisa, good to see you," he said, giving her a quick hug. "How are our Zephyrian friends doing?" "See for yourself," she replied, gesturing toward the thriving colony. Jake looked around at the crystal buildings, the bustling streets, and the peaceful integration of human and Zephyrian communities. "This is incredible. When we first picked them up from that dying planet, I wasn't sure they'd ever recover from the trauma. They're stronger than we thought. All of them are. How are things back on Earth?" Jake's expression grew more serious. "Busy, very busy. The president wants to see you, actually. That's why I'm here." 3 days later, Lisa found herself in the most secure conference room on Earth. President Susan Martinez sat at the head of the table, flanked by Admiral Kim, Director Walsh, and several other officials Lisa didn't recognize. The woman who had once been a pilot on the original rescue mission now led the most powerful nation on Earth. "Captain Parker," President Martinez began, "I understand you've been working closely with the Zephyrians on colony development. Yes, Madam President. They're remarkable people. Their technology is decades ahead of ours in some areas. But more than that, they share our values about helping others. That's what we hope to hear. Lisa, are you familiar with the Galactic Council's recent offer? Lisa shook her head. She had been so focused on the colony that she hadn't kept up with galactic politics. Admiral Kim leaned forward. 2 weeks ago, the Galactic Council formally invited Earth to join as a member world. Full voting rights, access to their trade networks, the works. It's everything we've dreamed of since we first discovered we weren't alone in the universe. That sounds wonderful, Lisa said, though something in their expressions suggested it wasn't that simple. President Martinez smiled grimly. It would be if we trusted their motives. But their offer came with conditions. They want us to stop interfering in what they call natural galactic processes. No more rescue missions to worlds that other civilizations have written off. In other words, Director Walsh added, they want us to become just like them. Help. Only when it's convenient and profitable. Lisa felt anger rising in her chest. After everything we've accomplished? After showing them that there's a better way to do things? That's exactly why they're making the offer, Admiral Kim explained. Our rescue missions are embarrassing them. When humans save people that the rest of the galaxy abandons, it makes their governments look bad to their own citizens. President Martinez stood up and walked to the window overlooking the White House lawn. We've received communications from resistance groups on dozens of worlds. People who are inspired by what we did for the Zephyrians. They're asking their own governments why humans care more about alien lives than they do. Some governments are starting to change their policies, Jake added. The Novarian Republic has established their own rescue fleet. The Crystal Confederation is sending aid to refugee camps that they ignored for decades. But others are getting nervous. Lisa began to understand. They're trying to co-opt us, bring us into their system so they can control what we do. Exactly. The question is, what do we do about it? President Martinez turned back to face the room. That's why you're here, Lisa. You've seen what we can accomplish when we work together with people who share our values. The Zephyrians, the Novarians, the Crystal Confederation volunteers who helped with the rescue. What if we formalized that cooperation? You mean the Terran Alliance? I thought that was just something Admiral Kim made up to scare off the hegemony ships. It was, the President admitted with a smile. But it's a good idea. Instead of joining their council, we form our own alliance, based on mutual aid, not political convenience. Admiral Kim activated a holographic display showing star charts. We've identified 17 worlds that have asked for our help with various problems. Natural disasters, refugee crisis, oppressive governments. If we work together, we can help them all. And there's something else, Director Walsh added. Our deep space monitors are picking up distress signals from beyond the galactic rim. Signals that the Galactic Council is ignoring because they're too far away to be profitable. Lisa stared at the star charts, seeing the scope of what they were. Proposing. You're talking about building something completely new. A galactic civilization based on helping people instead of exploiting them. That's exactly what we're talking about, President Martinez said. But we need people we can trust to lead these missions. People who understand that our strength comes from our compassion, not our weapons. Jake leaned back in his chair. Lisa, they're offering you command of the new flagship. The UE's Hope has been refitted with the latest technology. Zephyrian quantum drives, Crystal Confederation medical systems, human engineering. She's ready for missions that might take us to the edge of known space. Lisa felt her heart racing. 6 months ago, she had been a junior engineer on a desperate rescue mission. Now they were asking her to help build a new kind of galactic civilization. What about the Galactic Council? she asked. They won't just let us ignore their offer. Let them complain, President Martinez replied. We didn't ask for their permission to save the Zephyrians, and we won't ask for their permission to help others. The galaxy is a big place. There's room for more than one way of doing things. 3 weeks later, Captain Lisa Parker stood on the bridge of the U.S. Hope as it prepared to depart from Earth orbit. Her crew was a mix of humans, Zephyrians, and volunteers from other Terran Alliance worlds. Their first mission would take them to the Outer Rim, where a colony of miners was trapped by a collapsing moon. All stations report ready, announced her first officer, Commander Ben Hayes, a veteran of the original Zephyrian rescue. Communications are clear, reported Jake Morrison from his station. We're receiving the distress signal loud and clear. Dr. Amy Rodriguez looked up from her medical station. Medical bay is fully stocked and ready for casualties. Lisa looked around the bridge at her diverse crew. 6 months ago, most of these people had never heard of each other. Now they were family, united by a common purpose that transcended species. And homeworlds. Take us out, she ordered Dot, as the Hope jumped to hyperspace. A message arrived from Earth. President Martinez's voice filled the bridge. Captain Parker, as you begin this mission, remember that you carry with you the hopes of everyone who believes that the universe can be a better place. Show them what we learned from the Zephyrians, that when someone cries for help, there will always be someone willing to answer. The ship raced through hyperspace toward another impossible rescue mission. Behind them, Earth continued building. More ships and training more crews. The Terran Alliance was growing, one saved world at a time, and across the galaxy, on worlds where people had given up hope, new distress signals began broadcasting into the void. Because they had learned something. That changed everything. When humans heard a cry for help, they came running. The universe would never be the same again.